I enjoyed the opportunity to meet with Judge Jackson in person several weeks ago. I found our exchanges here on the committee after almost an hour of questioning to be very substantive and very thorough, and based on the answers that I heard from her then and in response to my other colleagues, I can say definitively that I like her. I think she's a good person, but I cannot support her. And I want to say a word or two as to why. We heard from her, she told me this actually when we sat down together in our meeting, and she said it again under oath, that she has no particular judicial philosophy. She's said in response to questions that she has no view on whether or not people have natural rights. Curious. She told Senator Blackburn she can't define what a woman is, but the one thing that she seemed to be very comfortable saying quite definitively is that she thinks the U.S. federal sentencing guidelines for criminals are too harsh. She said it repeatedly here under oath. We've talked about it at length. Her record reflects it. And I just want to say that I agree with my Democrat colleagues on this point at least. When it comes to a judicial philosophy, it probably is true that the best way to ascertain a nominee's judicial philosophy is to look at their record. And for days, that is exactly what we have done. I sat with the nominee and went through 55 pages of transcripts in her cases. We talked about multiple cases. Other senators questioned her on this score as well, and when you look at her record in depth, her consistent policy position is that the federal sentencing guidelines are outdated, they are outmoded, they are too harsh, and that criminals in general are oversentenced. And I just have to say, I couldn't disagree with her more. You know, she's very clear in her cases, and I commend the transcripts of her cases to everyone who is interested. If you read the transcripts of her cases, when she sentences criminals, and particularly in the child pornography cases that we've discussed so much, she routinely says that she has significant policy disagreements with the federal sentencing guidelines. She's very open about this. I mean, this isn't a secret. She's very open about it. And again, it's very clear in the child pornography cases in particular. This is why in 100% of those cases where she had discretion, 100% of the time, she sentenced below the federal sentencing guidelines, below the prosecutor's recommendations, and we now know, frequently, below what the probation office confidentially recommended. In the Hawkins case, in the Sears case, in the Kane case, in the Hilley case, we now know she recommended below or sentenced below what even the probation office recommended in their confidential reports to her, and she did it based on policy. And for me, this is very key. This is a very thoughtful person. Judge Jackson is not someone who's just wandered in here. She's very accomplished. She's very thoughtful. She was on the bench for 10 years, has been on the bench for 10 years, served on the Sentencing Commission before that. She's given these issues a great deal of thought. And I think that her views on these issues as it relates to sentencing and criminal justice are very well considered. I just disagree with them very fundamentally.